Welcome to Developer Roadmaps. In this explainer, we're hitting a really critical checkpoint on every developer's journey, Git. It's one of the most fundamental tools in your entire arsenal, so let's map out exactly what it is and why it's an absolutely non-negotiable skill.
So let's start with a scene that I'm sure is pretty familiar. You're deep into a project and your folder just becomes a graveyard of past attempts, right? You've got copies, backups of copies, and file names that are basically a desperate plea to your future self. It's chaotic and it's completely inefficient.
You know, this manual, messy way of saving your work is a universal problem, and thankfully, a brilliant solution was developed to bring order to all this chaos. That solution is called version control.
So what exactly is version control? Well, at its core, it's a system that records every single change you make to your files. It doesn't just save the current state, it saves the entire history. This is what gives you that almost magical power to rewind your project to any point in the past, see who made what change, and experiment with confidence knowing you can always go back.
Okay, so let's place this on our roadmap and take a look at where this powerful tool actually came from. The story of Git isn't just about some clever idea. It's a story of a crisis that threatened one of the most important open-source projects in history.
The creator of Git is Linus Torvalds. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because he's also the visionary behind the Linux kernel, the operating system that powers a massive portion of the internet. And as we're about to see, the two projects are deeply connected.
The story here is actually pretty dramatic. In the early 2000s, the massive Linux kernel project relied on a tool called BitKeeper. But in 2005, the company behind it suddenly just revoked their free license. This left the entire Linux community in a lurch with no way to manage their code. The project was at a complete standstill. So what did Linus Torvalds do? He did what he does best. He built his own solution.
And think about the urgency here. Linus Torvalds wrote the initial core version of Git in just 2 weeks. He wasn't trying to build the perfect tool for everyone. He was solving a critical problem for his team right then and there. That intense focus on speed, efficiency, and reliability is baked right into Git's DNA. Okay, so let's dive into how this all works. To truly get comfortable with Git, you need to understand its mental model. It's not just about memorizing commands, it's about understanding where your files live at each stage of the process. And we can think of this as 3 distinct areas, or trees.
First, it's absolutely crucial to understand that Git is a distributed system. What does that mean? It means when you work on a project, you don't just have the latest files. You have the entire history of the project right there on your own computer. Everyone on the team has their own complete copy, which makes Git incredibly fast and allows you to work completely offline.
Instead of just saving the specific changes to individual files, Git thinks in snapshots. When you make a commit, Git essentially takes a picture of your entire project at that exact moment. It stores a reference to that snapshot, not just a list of the file differences. This is a subtle but really powerful distinction.
The first tree is the one you already know and love, the working directory. This is simply the folder on your computer that contains all your project files. It's where you open your code editor, make changes, and do your actual work. It's your live, unfiltered workspace.
Now, this next part is what often trips people up, but it's pure genius. Before you take a snapshot, you move your changes to a holding area called the staging area, or the index. This lets you be incredibly precise. You can choose to add only certain files or even just parts of a file to your next snapshot. It gives you complete control to craft the perfect logical commit.
And finally, there's the repository itself. This is that hidden .git directory inside your project folder. It's the brain of the whole operation. When you commit your staged changes, Git takes that snapshot and saves it permanently into the repository. This becomes your project's official, unchangeable history. Everything is safe and sound in here. So how do you actually move your changes through these 3 trees? Well, the core workflow is surprisingly simple once you get the hang of it. Let's map out the 4 essential commands you'll be using every single day.
So here's the basic rhythm. You start a project just once with git init. Then, as you work, your flow is going to look something like this. You make changes in your working directory. When you've completed a logical chunk of work, you use git add to move it to the staging area. Finally, you use git commit to save that prepared snapshot to your repository forever, with a message explaining what you did. And at any point, Git status is your best friend. It tells you exactly what's going on.
Now, before we wrap this up, we need to clear up one of the most common points of confusion for anyone starting out. It's an absolutely critical distinction to make on your developer journey.
Let's be crystal clear on this. Git is the tool. It's the software on your computer, tracking your files. GitHub is the service, a website for hosting your Git projects. Think of it like this. Git is the engine, and GitHub is the garage where you can park your car and show it to your friends. You can definitely use the engine without the garage, but the garage is pretty much useless without the engine.
So, let's recap the key checkpoints we've hit. We learned that Git is a version control system that acts like a super-powered save button for your whole project. It was created by Linus Torvalds out of a crisis in the Linux world. The core workflow is all about add and commit, moving changes through those three conceptual trees. And remember, Git is the local tool, while GitHub is the online service for sharing that work.
So why does this matter so much? Because learning Git isn't just about learning a few commands. It's about adopting a professional workflow. It enables collaboration, it prevents catastrophic mistakes, and it gives you a safety net to be creative. Mastering this checkpoint on your roadmap provides a foundation that will support you in every single project you ever work on.
This is Developer Roadmaps. Map your path, build your career.